Hello, my name is Sarah Deitch. I'm a settler Canadian, and I was raised in the Eastern Arctic as a Nunavummiut, and then on Treaty 8 territory in Tabatcha, or Fort Smith, Northwest Territories. My mother is Irish Catholic, and she immigrated to Canada from Birmingham, England. My father's family are Ashkenazi Jews, and he immigrated to Canada from the United States. I work as a mediator, facilitator, and public policy consultant, and I live on Coast and Strait Salish territory in Victoria, British Columbia. Today I'll be reading from Honoring the Truth, Reconciling for the Future, summary of the final report of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada, starting on page 269. National reconciliation involves respecting differences and finding common ground to build a better future together. Whether survivors' hopes on the day of Canada's apology will ultimately be realized rests on our ability to find that common ground. Therefore, we believe that all levels of government must make a new commitment to reconciliation and accountability. The federal government, First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and all Canadians will benefit from the establishment of an oversight body that will have a number of objectives, including assisting discussions on reconciliation and making regular reports that evaluate progress on commitments to reconciliation. Progress on reconciliation at all other levels of government and civil society organizations also needs vigilant attention and measurement to determine improvements. In terms of public education, it will be important to ensure all Canadians have the educational resources and practical tools required to advance reconciliation. Calls to action. 53. We call upon the Parliament of Canada, in consultation and collaboration with Aboriginal peoples, to enact legislation to establish a National Council for Reconciliation. The legislation would establish the Council as an independent national oversight body, with membership jointly appointed by the Government of Canada and national Aboriginal organizations, and consisting of Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal members. Its mandate would include, but not be limited to, the following. 1. Monitor, evaluate, and report annually to Parliament and the people of Canada on Canada's post-apology progress on reconciliation to ensure that government accountability for reconciling the relationship between Aboriginal peoples and the Crown is maintained in the coming years. 2. Monitor, evaluate, and report to Parliament and the people of Canada on reconciliation progress across all levels and sectors of Canadian society, including the implementation of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's calls to action. 3. Develop and implement a multi-year national action plan for reconciliation, which includes research and policy development, public education programs, and resources. 4. Promote public dialogue, public-private partnerships, and public initiatives for reconciliation. 54. We call upon the Government of Canada to provide multi-year funding for the National Council for Reconciliation to ensure it has the financial, human, and technical resources required to conduct its work, including the endowment of a National Reconciliation Trust to advance the cause of reconciliation. 55. We call upon all levels of government to provide annual reports or any current data requested by the National Council for Reconciliation so that it can report on progress towards reconciliation. The reports or data would include, but not be limited to, 1. The number of Aboriginal children, including Métis and Inuit children, in care compared with non-Aboriginal children, the reasons for apprehension, and the total spending on preventative and care services by child welfare agencies. 2. Comparative funding for the education of First Nations children on and off reserves. 3. The educational and income attainments of Aboriginal peoples in Canada compared with non-Aboriginal peoples. 4. Progress on closing gaps between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal communities in a number of health indicators, such as infant mortality, maternal health, suicide, mental health, addictions, life expectancy, birth rate, infant and child health issues, chronic diseases, illness and injury incidents, and the availability of appropriate health services. 5. Progress on eliminating the overrepresentation of Aboriginal children in youth custody over the next decade. 6. Progress on reducing the rate of criminal victimization of Aboriginal people, including data related to homicide and family violence victimization and other crimes. 7. Progress on reducing the overrepresentation of Aboriginal people in the justice and correctional systems. 56. We call upon the Prime Minister of Canada to formally respond to the report on the National Council for Reconciliation by issuing an annual State of Aboriginal Peoples report, which would outline the government's plans for advancing the cause of reconciliation. These new frameworks and commitments will not succeed without more understanding and sensitivity among those who administer them. Call to Action 57. We call upon the federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments to provide education to public servants on the history of Aboriginal peoples, including the history and legacy of residential schools, the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, treaties and Aboriginal rights, Indigenous law, and Aboriginal-Crown relations. This will require skills-based training in intercultural competency, conflict resolution, human rights, and anti-racism.